It was a Saturday afternoon that smelled of sun, roses, and money. Marcus Whitmore, self-made millionaire and king of his social circle, was hosting one of his legendary garden parties. His estate was a vision of wealth, marble fountains catching the sunlight, trimmed hedges forming perfect patterns, crystal chandeliers hanging from outdoor gazebos like frozen stars. Every detail screamed luxury, but Marcus thrived not just on wealth. He thrived on power and sometimes the power of making someone else feel small. That day, as he mingled with his guests, socialites in designer gowns, young heirs flaunting inherited fortunes, he let a mischievous thought creep into his mind. A little joke. A little sting. And the target? Clara, his black cleaning lady who had worked in his home for 5 years. Quiet, diligent, never asking for more than she was owed. A woman who polished his floors, shined his silver, and kept his world spotless without anyone noticing. "Why don't we invite Clara to the party?" Marcus said, smiling as his friends chuckled. "Let's see how she handles rubbing elbows with us." Laughter bubbled up around him, some nervous, some mocking. Nobody questioned him. Marcus's reputation, wealth, and charm were a shield no one dared pierce. He imagined the looks on Clara's face, the awkwardness, the embarrassment. He imagined it would be hilarious. Meanwhile, miles away, Clara was finishing her morning chores. She was scrubbing, dusting, and arranging things exactly as Marcus liked them, humming softly to herself. When an envelope with the Whitmore crest arrived, she paused. A laugh escaped her lips. Marcus Whitmore inviting me? That can't be serious. But it was serious. The invitation was clear. She was expected. And she understood immediately the cruel undertone, the joke Marcus was planning. Clara set the envelope down and looked at herself in the mirror. Not to adjust her hair, not to perfect her appearance, but to remind herself who she was. She was not a punchline. She was not a joke. She was a woman with pride, with dignity, with presence. And tonight, she would make everyone see her for exactly that. By mid-afternoon, the Whitmore estate was alive with energy. Guests laughed, sipped champagne, admired the lavish displays of wealth. Marcus was in his element, moving from group to group, charming, confident, unbothered, until the valet called for a car at the entrance. Clara stepped out. The entire scene shifted. She wore an emerald green dress that seemed made for royalty, heels clicking softly against the marble driveway. Her hair glimmered in the sunlight, styled like a crown. Every eye turned. Every laugh paused. Marcus felt a jolt of unease. This was not what he had planned. She walked in as if she belonged, but more than that, she owned the space around her. She smiled at a few guests, nodding politely, her confidence undeniable. The whispers began immediately. Who is she? Where did she come from? Marcus forced a laugh. Clara, you made it, he called, trying to sound casual, trying to reclaim control. Clara smiled, calm, radiant, unshaken. Of course I did, she said softly. Wouldn't miss it for the world. The effect was immediate. Guests who had anticipated mocking her were captivated. She didn't need to speak loudly. She didn't need theatrics. Every movement, every gesture radiated elegance, confidence, and grace. Vanessa, one of Marcus's socialite friends, tried to hide her shock. "Claire, nice dress," she said, voice unsure. Clara turned to her, meeting her gaze steadily. "Thank you," she said. "It took courage and determination. Much like yours took years learning how to attend these kinds of events." The room went silent. Marcus's carefully orchestrated joke was crumbling. Clara had not come to be laughed at. She had come to teach a lesson, not with words, but with presence. By the time the sun began to dip, casting golden light across the estate, Clara had done the impossible. She had shifted the energy of the party. Conversations stopped when she approached, laughter softened, and Marcus, standing at the fountain, drink in hand, realized the truth. Some power could not be bought. It could not be commanded. It could only be earned and carried with dignity, and Clara carried it effortlessly. Every guest who had underestimated her now watched, captivated, silent in admiration. The joke Marcus thought he would win had already slipped through his fingers. Clara had arrived as a guest, and everyone else was hers to command. And as the first golden rays of evening painted the gardens, Marcus knew he had never seen anyone like her before. The evening had only just begun, but Clara had already rewritten the rules of the party. Conversations paused as she passed, eyes followed her every movement. Marcus stood near the fountain, swirling champagne in his glass, feeling an unfamiliar tightness in his chest. The joke he had carefully planned, meant to amuse himself and embarrass her, had completely backfired. Guests began gravitating toward Clara. They asked her questions about her life, her work, her perspective. Each answer she gave was measured, eloquent, and full of warmth. She spoke of hard work, of dignity, of never letting circumstances define a person's worth. People listened, captivated, not because of her wealth, she had none, but because of her presence. A young socialite named Stephanie, clearly moved, approached her. "How do you carry yourself like that?" she asked, genuinely curious. "I mean, everyone's looking at you. And you just walked in and, wow." Clara smiled warmly. "Confidence comes from knowing who you are," she said softly. "And grace comes from understanding that no one can take that from you. Not wealth, not status, not even someone's arrogance." Marcus watched from across the garden, a pang of discomfort gnawing at him. He realized that Clara wasn't just holding her ground, she was commanding the room. He had underestimated her, and now everyone else could see it too. Then the music changed. A string quartet began playing a soft, melodic tune, and the atmosphere shifted. Guests gathered near the fountain, some whispering, some staring. Marcus saw Clara's eyes light up, not with arrogance, but with subtle amusement, as if she knew the effect she had. She moved with elegance, each step measured, each gesture intentional. "Marcus," she said, approaching him with a calm smile, "thank you for inviting me. I've enjoyed the evening." He tried to mask his unease, forcing a laugh. "I'm glad you came," he said. "Really, you're quite the sensation." Clara tilted her head, her smile unwavering. "A sensation?" she asked softly, her voice carrying across the space. "I prefer being remembered for dignity, respect, and honesty." Marcus felt a flush rise to his face. He realized, painfully, that she wasn't here to be humiliated or impressed. She was here to show her true self, and everyone else was seeing it. Every wealthy, entitled guest, every smirk, every whisper, all silenced by her quiet authority. A few of Marcus's friends, trying to recover from their earlier judgment, approached her. They complimented her dress, her style, her confidence, but it was clear they were also learning a lesson. Clara smiled at each of them, acknowledging the words without needing approval. And then came the moment Marcus had feared the most, a toast. He lifted his glass, attempting to regain the spotlight. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, "tonight is a celebration of..." He faltered as his gaze fell on Clara. Every eye in the garden was on her now, and Marcus felt a strange mix of pride and embarrassment. He had invited her as a joke, but now she defined the party. Clara stepped forward gracefully, her dress catching the last rays of sunlight. She raised her own glass, not to mock, not to challenge, but to acknowledge presence and respect. To dignity, grace, and the courage to show up as your true self, she said softly. The garden went silent. And then, slowly, the guests began to raise their glasses. Marcus, watching, felt a jolt of realization. He had thought he controlled the room, controlled the narrative, but Clara had done something far more powerful. She had captured hearts and minds without demanding it. By the time night fell, Clara had become the undisputed center of the party. Guests sought her out, wanting to hear her perspective, her stories, her laugh. She moved effortlessly among them, leaving trails of admiration wherever she went. Marcus could only stand and watch, a mix of awe and humility settling over him. It was more than a lesson. It was a revelation. Marcus realized that true influence was not measured in wealth or status, but in character, presence, and integrity. Clara had come to a garden party as a guest, but she had left an imprint on every single person there. And in the quiet moments, when the last guests had left and the fountains shimmered under the moonlight, Marcus finally approached her. No arrogance, no jokes, just sincerity. "You've changed tonight," he said quietly. Clara smiled, gentle and knowing. "I didn't change anything. I just showed who I am." And in that moment, Marcus understood. The joke had been on him all along. The night had grown quiet, but the energy Clara had brought lingered like a golden echo. The guests had left, some still whispering about her poise, her confidence, the way she had made the entire evening unforgettable. Marcus stayed behind, standing near the fountain, the champagne in his hand now cold and forgotten. He felt a mix of awe, embarrassment, and a strange new respect, emotions he wasn't used to confronting. Clara approached him, her steps soft but deliberate. Her emerald dress shimmered under the moonlight, her smile calm, unshakable. "Marcus," she said, "I hope tonight showed you what it means to truly see someone, not just for the role they play, but for who they are." Marcus swallowed hard. He had thought himself in control, the orchestrator of a perfect joke, the center of this glittering world. And yet, in Clara's presence, he realized something fundamental. He had been blind. All his money, all his influence, could never replace dignity, courage, and authenticity. "I didn't expect. He began, struggling for words. You were incredible tonight." Clara's smile softened. "Thank you. But I wasn't here to impress anyone, especially you. I was here to honor myself. To show that no one can diminish your worth if you carry yourself with pride." Marcus nodded slowly, absorbing the truth of her words. He could feel a shift in himself, an unfamiliar humility creeping into his chest. He had been so focused on power, on appearance, on control, that he had forgotten the value of respect, both giving it and receiving it. For the first time in years, Marcus felt small, but in the most enlightening way. Not degraded, just aware. Aware that character mattered more than wealth, that a person's presence could command respect without money, without titles, without status. Clara had demonstrated all of this without arrogance, without yelling, without demanding attention. She had simply been herself, and that had been enough to leave a mark no gold could ever buy. The two stood in silence, watching the fountains sparkle under the moonlight. Finally, Marcus spoke again. "Clara, I want to apologize. For the joke. For underestimating you. For everything." Clara nodded, accepting the apology with grace. "I forgive you. But I hope you also understand, this isn't just about me. It's about how we see people. About respect. About dignity." He nodded again, humbled, aware that this night had changed him in ways he couldn't yet fully grasp. The lesson was not one to be laughed off. It was one to be carried forever. And as Clara walked toward the gate, leaving the estate as elegantly as she had entered, Marcus realized the truth. She had stolen the show, not with wealth or power or drama, but with something far greater. She had stolen it with her spirit. The next morning, Marcus could not stop thinking about her. The conversations, the laughter, the way people had gravitated toward her, all of it replayed in his mind. He knew something inside him had shifted. He had been taught, in the most unforgettable way, that the measure of a person's greatness was not in their bank account, but in their heart, their courage, and their dignity. Weeks later, Marcus took action. He instituted programs in his company to recognize and uplift employees in ways he had never considered. He started mentoring programs, scholarships, and initiatives that gave people opportunities he had previously thought were beneath his notice. Every change he made, he credited to the lesson Clara had taught him. Lessons not written in books, not spoken in meetings, but lived and demonstrated that one unforgettable night. Clara, meanwhile, returned to her life, quietly proud. She did not seek fame or recognition. She had shown that a single act of courage, showing up as your authentic self, could ripple far beyond a single evening. And those who had witnessed it carried her lesson forward, in whispered admiration, in genuine respect, in a newfound awareness that every person deserves to be seen for who they truly are. Marcus never forgot that night. He had tried to mock, to control, to assert power, and he had learned that true power is found not in wealth or influence, but in the ability to uplift, to respect, and to recognize greatness wherever it exists. Clara had arrived as a guest, invited as a joke, but she left as a teacher, a queen, a force that none could ignore. And the world she touched that night was forever changed. As the estate's gates closed behind her, Marcus whispered to himself, a hint of awe and humility in his voice. Some lessons you can't buy. Some people you can't underestimate. And in that quiet, reflective moment he knew she had won, not with money, not with status, but with the kind of spirit that commands respect and inspires everyone it touches. Clara showed everyone what true dignity looks like. Tell us in the comments what you learned from her. Don't forget to like and make sure you subscribe to Residential Stories so you never miss a story that leaves you speechless.